Our topic this morning, many are the paths to truth. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells us to do one's own duty, even unsuccessfully, is better than to do someone else's duty successfully. It is better to die while trying to accomplish one's own duty than to settle for another's duty, though safer and easier. Well, we can certainly accept this, but what really does Krishna mean on a deeper level here? A child may worship a hero. Maybe it's one of the gods, but perhaps more likely it might be a football player, or perhaps even a parent or an elder sibling. And he may say, I want to grow up and be just like them in every way. But as an adult, you wouldn't try to live someone else's Dharma in a literal sense. Rather, Krishna here is saying, don't blindly follow what society says or what other people say that are doing or say that you should do. He's telling us to go within. He's telling us to introspect, to pray for guidance every step of our way. And we each have our own path, our own Dharma to follow. And that path unfolds in a unique way for each of us. Krishna here also means, he talks about the desire to escape, to want things other than they really are. And this is perhaps a more common affliction that we can all feel in some way or another at different moments. We think maybe, well, now I could lead a different life. I could be a totally different person. You know, if only I could remove myself from this situation, from this boring job, from this spouse who doesn't listen all the time, from these children who don't always obey, from these parents who want to control other people. Now, if I could just get away, I would be a better person. Growing up, I remember I lived in the future. I wished I were somewhere else, doing something else. And I rejected and wanted to escape the small town and the narrow consciousness that I saw in the people around me. And I knew there was a bigger world that I had seen in TV, that I had read books about, and I wanted to be a part of that, whatever that was. And when I did move to the big city, I became happy. Not for the city, but because I started to meditate. And doing so, I felt an inner peace and an inner contentment, so that I could accept and welcome whatever came to me. Those new people in my life became new friends, and I saw in them a little bit of wisdom. I saw in them things that I wanted. I saw love. And I saw that they were sent by God to help me in some way. And in this way, I saw my Dharma unfolding. And I learned to accept and appreciate even my past, and even those people who used to irritate me as a child. our personal Dharma may take you to a position in life or a location very far from your roots. But for all of us, discovering and following our Dharma starts where we are right now. And accepting and appreciating the goodness that surrounds us, seeing the highest, and speaking to the highest in the people who are already in our lives, in the here and the now. When we were visiting Rome recently, I was reminded of Benvenuto Cellini, who was a Renaissance sculptor. And there was a story of how he was put in prison by the Pope because he refused to do a commission for the Pope until he was paid for the last job that he did. And he described that in prison, in his cell, it was damp, there were rats scurrying around, it was dark all of the time. Except for 1 hour of the day, there was enough daylight overhead that he had with him a Bible, and he could read the Bible for that 1 hour a day. And the rest of the time, he contemplated what he read. He meditated. And when he was finally freed from the prison, he was blissfully happy. And he said, if you want to find true happiness, then arrange to be thrown in prison and have enough daylight to read just 1 hour a day. And I think our situation is probably a little less dire than Cellini's. And we can find that time, that effort to put towards finding that same inner peace that Cellini did, that same inner happiness. And Swami Vivekananda said, it is no doubt a blessing to be born into a religion, but it is a misfortune to die in one. And whether we practice an outward religion or not, we want to raise our children with good spiritual ideals and with practices that can guide them and inspire them. But these practices can't take a person out of the ego. They're not enough to find moksha with. They're just the beginning. This is what Vivekananda was saying. The religion, the rituals, the beliefs are a wonderful beginning. But then we need to go beyond religion into spirituality, into an individual experience of the divine within each one of us. And that experience comes from inner work, from devotional surrender. It comes from deep meditation that goes far beyond what we can accomplish with outward ritual. In Rome, we visited some beautiful churches which inspire, but they also embody the worldly power and wealth of the church. Perhaps especially the Vatican. And by contrast with that, in the little town of Assisi in Italy, St. Francis led a different kind of Christian and spiritual life. He was praying in a little ruined chapel one day, and the image of Christ came alive and spoke to him. And he said, Francis, repair my church, which you can see has fallen into ruin. And naturally, Francis thought that he referred to this little chapel that he was in, which was falling down. But no, Christ was talking about rebuilding, re-inspiring the whole religion to help people practice in a more personal way, a more inward, humble, and simpler way. And Francis started an order for monks and nuns to follow a spiritual life, but he also started a lay order of householders who could follow a spiritual life, but not be dependent on a priestly caste, but to have direct experience with God as well as outward ritual. And we think that there's a tendency to think at least that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence, that someone else's Dharma is somehow more attractive than ours. Then we look longingly towards someone else's life. We compare ourselves. One disciple told Yogananda ji, he said, "Sir, I don't think I have very good karma." And Yogananda ji replied and said, "Don't say that. It takes very, 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 very good karma even to want to know God." And this is the message for all of us, that we have that very, 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 very good karma. It's as if, when the first desire for liberation, the first desire to know truth comes in our heart, we are very, very close to that goal. It's as if we're 5 minutes before midnight on the clock of our soul's evolution. And with so little left to go, we can give it our all and reach that goal quickly. Thank you.
Yogananda was asked the question, what is the best religion? And he answered, self-realization is the only religion, for it is the true purpose of religion, no matter how people define their beliefs. Whatever your beliefs and practices, the essential purpose of religion is to help you fulfill your own highest potential as a child of God. And we had this beautiful chant by our guru this morning, "I am the bubble, make me the sea." So wave of the sea, dissolve in the sea. I mean, this is really how we achieve our true highest potential. Because we go about this life thinking that we're these bodies and we're these egos and we're this separate self. But then when we start to have an inner experience, usually following some experience of the divine, or perhaps we start meditating and suddenly we don't define ourselves as outwardly, but suddenly experience ourselves as peace or light or love or joy. And suddenly, as soon as we experience that experience can expand beyond our little selves, beyond our brain, into just an expansive awareness and consciousness. So this essential truth that we are spiritual beings is the purpose of religion. And, when we take central truths from all religions, such as God is love, or Tat Tvam Asi, or Aham Saha, or, from the Jewish tradition, our Lord is one. You take these essential truths, it's sort of like white light. Within white light is the entire spectrum of the rainbow. And so you can take a sentence like God is love, and every single religion, every single soul can apply that to their lives and can apply that inwardly until we experience that truth. And so we can take these central truths and define them, and religions do define truths, and these defined truths of each of these religions sort of become the dogmas of each religion. And the dogmas can be very helpful for us in understanding, especially if we're just approaching religion or approaching spirituality when we're young, or when we decide to start turning inwardly or to God. These things can really help us in our understanding of what God is, or what our place in the world is. But we must continue to expand beyond those definitions of truth to actually experience the truth. Because if we stick with the definitions and then we say, no, this is my definition of truth, and then I have to protect my definition of truth, and if anybody has a different definition of truth, I'm not going to like that. I'm going to judge them or condemn them or not like them or start a war with them. You know, it's that's a dogmatism. And so we don't want to go in that direction. We want to go like the great saints and experience the truth within us, because when we experience that truth within, suddenly our vision and our understanding becomes greatly expanded, so that we can see God in all religions, we can see God in all souls and all devotees everywhere, because we are experiencing it within our own selves. And so we know that from the Autobiography of a Yogi, I'm assuming most of us have read that, Babaji Krishna, when he gives Kriya Yoga initiation to Lahiri Mahashaya, he says, give Kriya Yoga to all those devotees who sincerely ask for help. And then we know that Lahiri Mahashaya, for 25 years, as a householder, as an accountant in Varanasi, gave Kriya Yoga to all castes, to all religions, to all creeds. And we know Sri Paramhansa Ramakrishna. We know that he experienced God in so many different ways. He had a devotion, and he meditated on Christ. And suddenly he had a vision of Christ, and Christ merging with him. He also was, and his devotees were concerned, as you can imagine. And then also he started praying to Allah very deeply, and started following those practices, even started eating meat for a time, because he really wanted to experience God in that way. And suddenly he had a vision of Muhammad merging into the light. And so, he had, and of course, Kauli was his Ishta Devata. And then, he experienced God mostly as Divine Mother in this form, but then he also wanted to experience God without form. And it took the Guru Totupuri to come to Dakshineshwar and grind a piece of glass into his forehead and say, meditate here, gaze here. And suddenly he was able to move beyond the form of Divine Mother. Divine Mother gave him permission, of course. And then he was just in ecstasy for a very, very long time. I think it was weeks. And so, the great saints are the custodians, are the true custodians of religion. The ones who are experiencing God and their oneness with God, they don't see these divisions. The divisions are of the ego, not of the soul. And so when we start to judge or condemn, we have to just come back to, who am I? What is my true reality? I am not a wave competing with other waves on the surface of the sea. My true reality is the ocean of spirit. And as that being my true reality, I am one with all the other waves and all the other brothers and sisters. And so one thing that Swami Kriyananda said was that the true enemy of religion is atheism and materialism. Because as long as we're looking for our salvation or our freedom outside ourselves, our happiness and security outside ourselves, that all these things that I think are going to make me happy or secure, we won't look inside for God. We will always keep looking outside. And so, therefore, these are the true enemies. And so for each of us, we have our own individual path to God. Really, there are as many spiritual paths as there are souls, because each of us have our own relationship with God. And, we need to perhaps disappoint our friends or our families that have a different path, because, tradition is maybe just like maybe you think your Dharma, your parents or your grandparents think your Dharma is to be the same profession that they were, or your parents and your grandparents feel you need to be the exact same expression of religion or God that they followed. It's like each of us has our own path. So what is our highest duty and our highest Dharma? To follow that which will help us expand our consciousness and our awareness. Take our next step towards merging in that oneness. That is always going to be our highest Dharma. And so we can ask ourselves minute by minute, is this taking me to where I want to go? Is this decision that I'm making right now taking me closer to that oneness or taking me further from that oneness? And we can always check during the day, put a little alarm on our phones or something and just say, what was I thinking just now? Is that thought taking me closer to my goal of oneness? Or my goal for happiness? My goal for happiness? Lasting happiness? Or is it taking me away from that? Because everything that we are experiencing on the spiritual path needs to make us not more narrow-minded, but more expanded. And even that way, we need to choose a path. We need to go deep in one path. We need to be loyal to a path, loyal to God, loyal to the Guru. But that loyalty should bring us more and more to an expansive state, not a narrow-minded state. So that's also another way to kind of know, is this a true path? Is this the true way that I should be walking? Is it expanding my consciousness, my awareness, or is it narrowing it and becoming too sectarian or becoming too narrow where I'm judging and condemning others? So I'd like to end this with a quote by Swami Kriyananda. This was when he was going back and forth between India and Italy, and at 3 a.m. he woke up just before a flight to India. He said, "The more bliss I feel in myself, the more I find everyone around me utterly lovable. How vastly varied are the ways of approaching that same bliss. Every being on earth has his own unique way of seeking it." So let's all have as our spiritual goals to just find that bliss, find that love within, and share it with all.